tonight's session will give you a taste of what we talk about in those sessions all across the UK, how it's really important to be positive about our children's online world. Because if we're always focusing on the negative, always being down about their online usage, then they're not going to come to us and talk to us if something goes wrong or upsets them, or they'll just kind of dismiss our advice. Almost, it kind of is summed up nicely by Jess's comment there on the first slide. Jess 17 contacted Childline, and she said it would be very nice if they wouldn't say be careful who you're talking to online. They might not be who you think they are. And instead they said if anything at all makes you even slightly uncomfortable, then you can talk to someone. So hopefully you'll get a sense from this evening that what we're really about at the NSPCC is having regular conversations with our children about their online world, being positive about their online world, but also being mindful of the potential risks. So hopefully there'll be 3 key takeaways from tonight's session. There'll be an understanding of the risks and benefits of being online for our children, some practical things you can do to help keep your children safe online, and some knowledge of the tools and resources that can help you. Safeguarding, this is a safe space. If you want to ask questions, please do feel free. I do work for the NSPCC, and I have a duty that if I have a concern for a child, I have a duty to act upon that concern, but please do treat this as a safe space. Self-care too, it's never nice to think about our children being at risk or abused online, so we would ask you to take some time for yourself afterwards, have a cup of tea maybe. And if we do bring anything up that's particularly triggering for you, please know that the NSPCC helpline is there to support. I'll be giving the number later on in the session, but it's worth saying it now too, 0808 800 5000. I think a few people think our helpline is just the number you ring if you've got a concern about a child, but our trained practitioners are there to help with all sorts of support, from when to leave children home alone, coping with crying, online safety. So if you need to, please reach out. And as Nikki said, housekeeping, if we lose the connection, we'll come back on and I'll resume from where we left off. So I'm just going to kind of set the scene now, and it's not to say this is right or wrong or it shouldn't be happening, but it's trying to get you in the mindset that children are active users of tech from a very young age. And we know, for example, that 17% of 3 to 4-year-olds have their own mobile phone, and 89% use video sharing platforms, and 21% use social media apps, and 84% watch YouTube channels. When it comes to 5 to 7-year-olds, we know that 28% of them have their own mobile phone, and 59% use messaging apps, and 33% have their own social media. 8 to 11-year-olds, we know that 79% of them use a tablet to go online, 69% of them play games online, and 64% have more than one account on a social media platform. 12 to 15-year-olds, 89% have their own social media profile, and 73% use live streaming apps. And as you might expect, 16 plus, more independent users, the majority of them use a tablet to go online. The majority, 99%, use a messaging site or app. Interestingly as well, with that group, 20% said they have a separate social media account just dedicated to a hobby or an interest. So as you can see, children are active users of tech from a very young age, and that might be for a number of reasons. Tech is very easy to navigate around. It's very easy to reach desired content, and that could be an indication. But whatever age they are, they're always going to need our help and support to keep safe in their online world. They always need to know that we're here to listen and support them. And that's why these regular conversations with our children, which we advocate, are so very important. I'm going to share a video now, and I think this is a really important video in that, because sometimes when we're concerned about an issue, we think we're the only ones concerned about it, or we have these questions and no one else is going to ask this question. But actually, as parents and carers, we do have common concerns. We do share the same worries, and we also, as you'll see in the video, it's really good that we reach out to each other and share knowledge and information as well. So I'll play the video. Let me know if there's any sound issues, but it should hopefully come through okay.
I do worry about the children's locations being identified through their apps and games.
It can be quite difficult to keep up to date with all the different changes and keeping the apps safe. I think if you're not techie yourself, it can be a little bit complicated.
A major concern of mine is that he'll derive self-worth through social media, and therefore if a post doesn't get the response that it wants, or even worse, it gets criticised, or he somehow feels humiliated by his friends or strangers, I feel that could have a real negative impact on his development.
I worry about my children on social media, just any outside influences, anything that's inappropriate that I wouldn't want them seeing, or any contact from people that they don't know.
People contacting out of the blue, people pretending to be somebody else.
My ultimate fear is that they will be groomed by somebody that they don't know online.
The greatest worry is that she becomes easily led by that person, and they may, they talk her into doing things that she shouldn't do.
We have parental controls set over the Wi-Fi, so they cannot access everything that's out there online at the moment.
I'm really conscious about being in the room when they're playing. So the computer isn't in their bedroom, it's in our living room. So when they're playing, I can kind of hear what they're doing.
I try and say to children, show me how this works, sort of thing, so that I can get an idea that if I do need to access that or figure out something, I'm able to understand it a little bit as well.
I talk to my children a lot to try and keep them safe, and I just make them aware of the dangers, really.
It's difficult, and I think sometimes you have to pitch those conversations differently for the different ages. But yeah, we do talk about it, and they talk between themselves as well.
So when we're talking about our children's online world, it's really important, as I said earlier, that we talk about positives as well as risks. And there are many benefits for our children being online. It helps support their development. It allows them to chat with friends and family. It's a chance to get creative. For those exploring their individuality, it's a chance to get information and support. And we know that children, since lockdown, the number of children playing games online has gone through the roof. But there are also the risks, and these are risks that they may stumble across or come across out of looking for out of curiosity, and that could be unwanted contact, seeing or experiencing cyberbullying, reading something untrue or out of date. I think that's a really good point in this day and age when so much is happening in the world. We perhaps recommend going to sites like BBC Newsround. They have a great way of talking about world events in an age-appropriate way, in a language that's responsible. Oversharing personal information and location. Like, it's great to say, yeah, I love football, me, but not so great to say, and me and my mates go down Harold Park every Tuesday to have a kickabout, for example. And it's interesting there, we've got the impact on the mental health and well-being too. And that can be a positive at times, if they're looking for support, looking for information, like I mentioned earlier on, then it could have a good impact on children and young people. But there is also the negative impact, that feeling of always having to be on, when you get the little ellipsis, someone sending you a message, oh, I'll just stay on another bit just to see what they've said. Or that fear of missing out and not realizing that people always just perhaps put the best of themselves online. We did a really great tour with Maya Jama, the TV presenter, to some schools in the northwest of England as part of a Childline campaign. And I remember her talking to the children and young people she met. And she was talking about, it takes about 6 people to get her into these really glamorous outfits that she wears. She looks fabulous, doesn't she? But she says it takes about 6 people to get me into that outfit. And then she talked about, if people are being negative online, then she's quite happy to take a break or not follow them anymore. So it's about having these regular conversations with our children, letting them know that they don't always have to be on all the time as such, letting them know what's appropriate, what isn't appropriate online, and letting them know they can always come to us if something they see upsets or worries them as well. So we've tried to be helpful and put the risks into kind of 3 key areas: who they're chatting to, what they're seeing, and what they're sharing. So there are lots of different ways to chat online nowadays: direct messages, group chats, comments, voice, video calls, etc. You can chat to other people across lots of different types of apps and sites, including gaming nowadays. And some of the key risks with that element is grooming. That's when an adult deliberately tries to establish an emotional connection or trust with a child with the aim of engaging them in sexual behavior or exploitation. And then there's cyberbullying, bullying that takes place online, and we know that often goes hand in hand with offline bullying as well. So it can feel like that there's no escape. It follows them 24/7. It can have such a devastating impact on young children and young people's lives. Other risk area, what they're seeing. Innocent searches can often lead to not so innocent results. Some children may go looking for it, others may stumble across it. For example, in our household, we used to really love Toy Story, and one of the favorite characters there is a cowgirl, isn't she? Well, if you just type cowgirl into a search engine, you might not be getting the Toy Story results you were expecting. And everyone gets upset by different things, there's different triggers, and this can change daily. And the trouble is, no filter is going to be 100% effective. That no moderator is going to be able to completely block inappropriate content, especially when you consider the sheer volume of content that's being uploaded to the internet all the time. In 2020, just to YouTube alone, so no other site or app or anything, there was 500 hours of content uploaded every single minute. 500 hours every single minute going up to YouTube. So no filter is going to be 100% effective. So that's why I really need any parental controls need to come hand in hand with these regular conversations that we have with our children and young people. Another risk area is what they're sharing. I gave the football example earlier on, didn't I, about the football and sharing location. That's always a big risk factor. Personal information oversharing, usernames, like, for example, could put them at risk across various different platforms. Knowing, for example, what information is needed, looking for the asterisks. You don't have to give absolutely everything. It's about having those conversations, because the internet wasn't designed with children in mind. This doesn't come with a rule book. It's about having regular conversations, helping them navigate their online world. And also nude images on videos. Children could share or receive sexual messages, images or videos, which is against the law. I'll slightly deviate here and mention a brand new tool that the NSPCC has put together. Childline's been working with the Internet Watch Foundation. And if a child has shared an image or video, for whatever reason, they've been manipulated or, you know, persuaded to send something, it can be devastating knowing it's out there. You know, walking around your community, your local street, have they seen it? Have they seen it? It can be really devastating. So Childline worked with the Internet Watch Foundation, and children can now report those images, and we can get them taken down from the internet, which is a game changer. It's a really vital piece of work. Really proud of my Childline colleagues there. But remember, risk can happen anywhere to anyone at any time. So here are some signs of online abuse. Let me just take a drink. Get a bit of a dry throat. Sorry about that. And this is not an exhaustive list, and it could be that some of these indicators it could be down to something else going on in a child's life. But it's important to remember that abuse is most often discovered, not disclosed. Children might know might not know what's happening to them is abuse. And I say that because, like, for example, if we were to ask a poll of people to list signs of online abuse.
నీకు చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఆన్లైన్ అబ్యూస్ ఎలా ఉంటుందో.
Hello, sorry. They might say, you know, an obvious sign would be seeming distant, upset, or angry, for example, but they might not say seeming extremely happy or confident. And it's like, when you consider grooming, groomers are very persuasive. They're good at manipulating children, young people, to think that they're the only friend, they're the only one who understands them. They might be showering them with gifts like loot boxes in games, which we'll come on to later. So it's really important that if there's anything that's changed, sudden changes in behavior, something that's not normal for your child, it's about having those regular conversations then. Other indicators might be spending more or less time online, becoming secretive with devices and profiles, having lots of new contacts. Every child is different, and so the signs might be different. So what's something sudden changes, something unexplained, like, for example, teenagers, they might have grumpy teenage behavior, but they may not wet the bed, for example. So what's not normal for your child, for example? And what we hope by the end of these kind of sessions is that as parents and carers, we feel that we're in the green square. Sometimes, I must admit, kind of seesaw between casual and controlling. But if we're too controlling, our children will feel that they can't come to us when something goes wrong, that devices will be taken off them, for example. And actually, we want to be confident, we want to be knowledgeable, we want to be equipped as parents and carers. And I don't mean to say you need to know all the games and apps out there, all the terminology. Knowledgeable in the sense you know where to go for support and advice, like the NSPCC web pages, for example, the NSPCC helpline. But there are other helpful sites out there like Common Sense Media, for example, which they look at apps, games, TV shows, films, give parent reviews, kind of explain what are some of the downfalls of them and some things you can do to help mitigate the risks. For example, it's about being confident and knowing where to look for support, for example. It's like any kind of parenting task, teaching your children to cross the road. It's about, you start together, you point out the safety features, the green cross code man, then you start allowing your child to take control while you're still with them, and then it goes on and on till they're being able to cross the road themselves. And it's the same with online safety. It's about sharing, looking at what they're doing online, exploring apps and games together. For example, there's a really great video on the NSPCC web pages. This dad's playing a pizza delivery game with this young girl, and they're having great fun. It looks like a fabulous game. They're laughing and etc. But he's going through all the safety settings with his daughter. He's checking who can actually contact her and that. But it doesn't feel like a big safety chat, or it doesn't feel ominous. It just, they're having fun delivering pizza, but they're having safety conversations at the same time. So some of our top tips to get you started: it's all about starting with the positives and taking an interest, making sure they know the basics for keeping safe, location settings off, for example, exploring favorite apps and games together. I think this is a really good one, and there's some really nice side effects from it if you're doing it, because like if you've decided as a household that people can only play 20 minutes each night an online game, but their favorite app or game takes 30 minutes to complete, for example, because you've explored together, you're going to save yourself a lot of arguments, and you can adjust your household rules accordingly, that it's 30 minutes every other night maybe, and you save yourself a lot of argument. I say that from heartfelt experience. But where it says explore together, I'd also have a look for yourself as well. Children will only show you the best bits of games. So like, for example, my stepchildren used to come around every weekend, and you'd be lucky you just get the grunt at the dinner table out of them. So I decided to play online games with them, and they got me interested in a game called Animal Crossing, which has been around donkey's years. It looks quite child friendly. There's an island that you can design with little fluffy creatures running around on top of it. But then they didn't show me, for example, that when you go to visit other people's islands, some of the users can make their avatars say rude messages, and then there's a feature where you buy turnips, I know, on a Sunday, and the purpose of the game is to sell them for as high a price as you can, which is almost like a form of gambling, which is why it's important to explore together, but have a look for yourself too. It's really important as well to involve them in setting rules and boundaries for online use. Children know how to get around things like parental controls, which we'll come on to later on. So that's why it's really important to involve them in setting them. They're much more likely to abide by them, and let them know they can talk to you or another safe, trusted adult, or they can contact Childline. Hopefully we've moved on from, for some parents, Childline, knowing that your child wants to talk to Childline, you kind of think, oh, why can't they talk to me? How have I failed as a child, as a parent? But children have told us at Childline that they like to speak to us because they don't want to upset their parents, don't want to add to their burdens, don't want to add to their worries, for example, don't want to anger them. Sometimes they'll contact Childline to practice how they're going to talk to your parents. And actually, Childline's come on so much since the 80s, and that first night with 4 phone lines and 50,000 children ringing through. The website, for example, has some really great videos and articles on there. You might like to use them as conversation starters if there's an emotive topic you want to talk about, for example, not sure how to go about it. Read the article together with your child and then kind of talk about it. Also, they have moderated message boards where children offer advice and support to their peers. If you want an uplift in 5 minutes, go and have a look at them. It's really great. The way that they offer each other support is fabulous. And then there's things like the Calm Zone on the Childline website, which is an area 10,000 children at peak during the lockdown visited each week. And there's like breathing exercises on there. There's other activities to help manage anxiety, for example. And it's all about keeping conversations regular and getting support. Now, if your child does reveal abuse, I know you'll do this, but it's always really important to reiterate, but it's about listening carefully, reassuring them, telling them they've done the right thing, because it's hard, isn't it, to admit when something's gone wrong. We know this ourselves as adults. So it's really important to reassure them, telling them they've done the right thing. It's never their fault. It's about asking open questions and explaining what you'll do next, and make sure you get support and report it. but please never confront an abuser. So practical things you can do to help keep your children safe online. With younger children, it's really important to help with supervision. We all have busy lifestyles, I know, but perhaps, like we would with play dates, take it in turns as parents to help supervise children when they play games online. Make sure you turn off autoplay settings, put safety settings on, and agree rules and boundaries together. With older children, you might start by asking for their help to set up apps safely and explore together. As I said, Childline's website's got some really great advice on sensitive topics. They've also got their own YouTube channel. Be aware though that some of those videos are 13 plus. But with older children, it's about being realistic with the rules and agreements that you set up with your children, for sure. So I'm going to look at some specialist topics now, and we're going to look at gaming first off, because gaming since lockdown, the numbers have shot through the roof, and children love playing games online, and they can play games across most devices and can chat to other players in lots of different ways. And it's great for them to socialize with their friends, relax and have fun. They can get outside and explore, such as things like Pokemon Go. It's a chance to get creative. And it's really good to point out here, like when I mentioned about exploring apps for yourself and getting creative. A lot of children and young people like the fashion games, and where they can design their own outfits. And some of these look really child friendly, very cartoony, but once you've finished your outfit and put them on the model, sometimes the models have really sexualized poses, and you might not think that's appropriate for your child, which is why when I said earlier about exploring apps and games together, that can be really important. It's a chance for them to be competitive. I mean, my poor stepson, he was terrible to play board games with. He was such a bad loser and winner, but because he's playing games online with his friends, and he's had to be a good winner and loser because otherwise they wouldn't play with him, it's a chance for him to be a good competitor. It's a chance to learn new skills, and like as adults, we like watch stuff because other people are watching it. Children like playing games because other children are playing the games too. But some of the risks when it comes to online gaming, it could be contact from people that they don't know or that don't have their best interests in mind, seeing inappropriate content in the gameplay or chat, online bullying or griefing. There are some games, if you're playing with others, I've seen it myself, where that you're playing, other people will be chatting or speaking out loud and moaning about, oh, you're not good enough to play this, or you're a rubbish shooter, for example. You might not know what griefing is. Griefers are people who deliberately set out to upset or harass other players. Like, for example, my husband likes playing that Call of Duty game, and when you're playing with others, when you get shot dead and you come back to life to have another go, they'll like kind of camp out where people come back to life and shoot you dead immediately, so you get killed, come back, get killed, come back. It can be really frustrating, and if it's happening to children, young people, it can be hard to kind of get your head around. It's really really frustrating. Why they do it, I have no idea. Scams and in-game purchases, these could rack up a bill that you didn't expect, but that you have to pay back. So here I think it's good to point out, sometimes, some as parents and carers, we perhaps worry that we won't understand all the terminology, we won't be able to keep up. I didn't know what a whisper was, for example. This is a private message sent from one player to another during a game. But it's about, when we're having these regular conversations with our children, we don't need to know all the VRs and the loot boxes and skins, etc. It's about exploring the game together, asking how play with them, asking how it works, what they like about it. If we're being positive and exploring together, they're much more likely to tell us when something's upset them or worried them. Loot boxes, it's worth mentioning here. In most countries in Europe, they're kind of seen as gambling, but not in the UK. And these are virtual treasure chests you can buy for real money, but you don't know what you're going to get till you kind of open them. It's a bit like, obviously, with the World Cup on. Good example is, when you used to collect the football player stickers and put them in the magazine, and you'd go to the newsagents, buy your pack of players, and you'd get the same ones time and time again. It can be like that with loot boxes. You open up and you get absolute rubbish. Sometimes you get really important, like tools or weapons for a game that you need to complete a level, but sometimes be aware that you sometimes just get rubbish. And so it's really important you sit down as a family and agree how much money or how much pocket money they can spend on a game, for example. Skins are the same. My stepson used to play Minecraft, and at the time the new Star Wars films and Marvel films were out. and you could buy these skins, which are like costumes, if you like, that you can put your little character into, like, and you could be Obi-Wan Kenobi or, you know, Captain America, that kind of thing, and they cost real money. And it's nice for children, but it's about having those conversations about how much money is you're willing to allow to be spent on it and things like that. So let's talk about age ratings, because helpfully, and I say that not helpfully, it can be confusing because there are 3 different age ratings and they don't always match. So there's the game makers rating, there's the App Store rating, and then there's the PEGI rating, and they don't always have to be the same for a particular game. So we perhaps recommend you go by the PEGI ratings, but it's worth noting that the PEGI ratings take into account the content of the game and not necessarily the behavior of other players or the communication features, which could put children at risk of cyberbullying or grooming. Also, is a lot of attention gets put on 18+ games, doesn't it? You know, Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, all like that, and you obviously not appropriate for children, but they really want to play it. So it's worth remembering that in 2017, over half the games rated by PEGI were 7+ games. So it's worth having explored. There might be another game out there which has the same kind of skills needed or storyline that is much more age appropriate for your child as well. That's why sites like Common Sense Media are quite handy in that way. Also, content descriptors. These are the little black boxes that you can see on the right hand side. They were a good indication on the outside of packaging that, for example, there might be sex in the game or gambling in the game. There used to be a little descriptor which said that a game had online communication features, ability to play and chat with others, but because this is so standard in games nowadays, they just got rid of it back in 2015, which isn't always helpful. So just because you don't see it doesn't mean to say that the game doesn't have those online features. So supporting your child when it comes to their online gaming, check the game's content and rating, turn on the safety settings, set up new accounts, play together is always a good bit of advice. If you can, keep the devices in shared family spaces like that lady said on the video. Particularly with younger children, it's a good idea to play the sound through speakers and not the headsets, so you can have a listening ear out. And it's about talking to your children regularly about, you know, if they are chatting to other people and the chats become about not about the game, or they're asked to move to a different platform like Discord, for example, that's when they should come and tell you and let you know what's going on. And if you're worried about your child spending too much time online, we'll talk about this in more detail in a moment, but it's about thinking about what's what if it's becoming too disruptive to their routines, for example. So it's about encouraging them to do other things, encouraging them to take breaks and eat properly, for example, but we'll talk about that in a moment, because we're now going to talk about persuasive design and screens. So how often do you think we check our phones on average? 5 to 10 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, or 20 to 25 minutes? I think that, you know, be a few answers there. Some of us who are perhaps trying to look like we're good and say 5 to 10 minutes, or some of us acknowledging that, you know, we're quite bad and say 20 to 25 minutes. But actually, according to our Ofcom, we check or use our smartphones on average every 12 minutes. And mobile phones and online technologies, they're designed to keep us connected. They spend a lot of money with professionals and psychologists in how to do this, and they find ways to keep us engaged through what's called persuasive design. It keeps us wanting to go back for more, continue to use the apps and games, for example. So how do they keep us coming back for more? If you thought you could just scroll until you reach the bottom of your social feed, then that won't happen thanks to infinite scrolling. If you get bored of scrolling, then you can always pull to refresh for more content. And there's no point in leaving the app when your friend's typing. I mentioned it early on, the little ellipsis. Oh, they're replying. Better not put it away just yet. If you have managed to leave, then there's the app notifications, and that notification is very often in red. Red is a color you can't ignore. It keeps you engaged, doesn't it? You better not ignore it. You better open it, for example. And when you're back on the app, there's the sort of more suggested content for you. If that comes to an end, then the next one is lined up and autoplay kicks in. And how can we forget the rewards? You can just clicking on the app each day, for example. So persuasive design uses insights from psychology to make products more engaging. Persuasive design is used extensively in social media apps to make sure that users spend as much time as possible on the sites, but other sites, including games, they have these kind of features to use. And it uses the information from what we research, what we click on, what we like and comment on across platforms to provide adverts and more content to keep us engaged, recommending apps to others and going back for more. So think about, how often have you gone on your phone a day? Consider how many of those were because of the features. I know, perhaps lying in bed, I should put it on the bedside table, but another video will play on the news feed, another video, etc. And it's hopefully if we can realize how it's easy for us, how easy it is for children to keep going back on as well. So taking back control, you can choose what you're notified about, meaning you may not look at your phone as much. App limits can help you to manage the amount of time your child spends time online, which can ensure they can only spend time on specific apps that supports their well-being and learning. Using well-being apps and settings can support your mental health whilst used in social media. Do not disturb night mode can prevent your phone lighting up and notifying you when people text or call, which can mean less distractions. I've had to use this. My stepdaughter started uni in September for the first time, and started going out and getting messages at 4 a.m. just to let me know she's having a great time. It's not always great. So yeah, it's about the turning on the do not disturb or use night mode. But remember, it's not just about how long we spend on time. It's important to think about what we're doing as well. So it's important to think separately about the amount of time we're spending online and what we're doing online. Sometimes I think with the conversations that we have, particularly in the media, we just focus on the amount of time, don't we? But it's about thinking about the quality of time we have online. The UK Council for Internet Safety found that 47% of young people use technology to support and promote respect and kindness, liking or sharing someone else's post, posting supportive comments, and signing an online petition. There's a recommendation that we shouldn't be on screens 1 hour before sleep. Oxford University researched 20,000 parents, that's quite a big survey of children aged between 2 and 5, found that screen time limits may have nothing to do with a young child's ability to thrive, for example. Ofcom research found that 53% of 12 to 15-year-olds said they find it hard to control their screen time, while the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health suggests that there's no safe level of screen time, but doesn't mean that all screen time is helpful. Is harmful, rather. And that we know that the amount of screen time will differ per child, per family. So what we say, it's about considering the quality of the screen time, the balance of online, offline activities, the impact screen time is having on the child's mood, sleep and behavior, the age and maturity of the child, and any additional needs of the child, for sure. Sometimes routines need to change, but keeping safe what we do never should. So keeping your child safe online should always take priority over changes in routine. For example, lockdown meant young people were spending more time online. So it's even more important that we were having those regular conversations with your children, letting them know they can come to us about anything that upsets and worries them. So some top tips for supporting your child. As I said, think about what your child's doing online rather than the amount of time, and make sure you talk about this with them. Create a family plan and stick to it. And I think it's important not to be judgmental about a teen's screen time and phone use. If we're negative or judgmental, they'll perhaps stop coming to us or talking to us if something worries them. Make it purposeful. You could go online with your child to find and write down a recipe and make it together, for example. It shows how going online has purpose. That means you can't looking at a screen continuously, for example. Examples of modeling good screen use boundaries as well. As adults, if we're asking our children to do this, it's a really good example. It's really good to be an example as well. I mean, I'm terrible with Facebook. When I'm talking to my children about, do they know who they're talking to online? I've got people on there from my primary school days. Haven't seen these people for 40 years, but I'm nosy. I like to see what they've done with their lives, but that's not setting a good example for my children. And so examples of modeling good screen use include, perhaps not using phones at dinner table, creating that family agreement I mentioned, showing your child you can take breaks too. Wellbeing tools such as do not disturb and app time limits can be helpful with being more aware of how long you spend time online to help you to reduce this. But remember, children can experience risk and impact on their wellbeing even when online for a short time. So they aren't a solution on their own. Use them as a guide rather than a solution. That's what I would suggest. And be aware that teens heavily rely on screens to keep in touch with their friends and family. And it's trying not to judge them. Consider how much we also rely ourselves on tech every day. And it can be easy to lose track of what you and your children are eating whilst using the screen. So make sure that snacking and meals whilst using screen time is part of your overall diet too. So let's look at parental controls. And I think it's really important with parental controls to make sure that you call your mobile phone and device providers to help you learn more about what parental controls are available and how to tailor this to your child or children of different ages. Look at the settings and controls on your child's favorite app, site, or game, because some do have built-in app settings that are designed to help young people safe, and they're normally set up by default. But that's only based on the fact that they've set if your child signed up with the correct age. But it's about remembering to think about what's age appropriate for your child and talk with them about why the parental controls are being put in place. Lots of children know how to get around parental controls, which is why it's really important to let them be part of the process of putting them parental controls in place. It's also important to understand the limitations of parental controls. That gentleman in the video talked about we have Wi-Fi parental controls in the home so they can't see horrible content out there, but that only works in the home, and or if they're on a data plan.
You okay, Gail? Is it stuck?
Screen again. I'll try again. Are we back? Is that okay? Yeah. I'm nearly finished anyway. So it's about understanding the limitations. Remembering parental controls set up in the home might not work outside the home, for example. What we'd say the most important parental control is these regular conversations with our children. It's all very well having the technical parental controls, but they've got to be, they're not a solution in and of themselves. They have to kind of come hand in hand with these regular conversations that we have with our children. So I'm going to give you an example of some privacy settings, for example, because I think it's really important as well to kind of show as well as talk about something. And the principles of privacy settings are consistent. They may differ slightly from app to app, but generally to change the settings on an account, the process is the same. Menu buttons can sometimes look a bit different, but generally the what we call the hamburger menu, those 3 lines, that seems to be the most commonly used. And once you're in the menu, generally the settings area is found by clicking the settings cog. Again, this isn't universal, but tends to be the most common. For example, Instagram, music, TikTok, for example. I'm going to show you some features on TikTok, for example, to give you an example of some of, I'm saying example too much, but some of the things you can be looking out for. So, for example, once you've accessed the settings area of TikTok, you can click on the privacy button. And once in the privacy section, first thing to ensure is that the private account is turned on. Green usually means on. And if you have a private account, only people you can approve can either follow you, view your videos, live videos, bio, likes, as well as your following and followers list. And with a private account, other people won't be able to duet, stitch, or download your videos. Direct messages, there's more that you can do in TikTok other than just turning on the private account. Also within the privacy tab of the settings area, it's worthwhile checking who can send direct messages, for example. Direct messages are like text, private messages to the user that nobody else can see. And if you click on the direct messages button, you can show you who the user selected for who can send them to direct messages. Ensure that either no one or friends is selected. Selected, you can see that's selected because it's highlighted red. Also, TikTok has a digital wellbeing. I've talked earlier on, didn't I, about some apps and sites do have this. If you scroll down on the settings and privacy page, you'll see the button called digital wellbeing. There are two options in this menu: screen management and restricted mode. Screen management allows you to set a time limit per day, and restricted mode limits content that may not be appropriate for younger users. And when turned on, it can't be turned off without a 4-digit passcode that you can set. Also, there's a feature called family pairing. Underneath the digital wellbeing button, there's the family pairing button. As you can see, it requires the parent to set up a TikTok account And after pressing family pairing, you'll be able to choose whether you're the parent or the child. And this lets parents link their TikTok account to the child's account, so you can enable a variety of content and privacy settings. And we'd encourage parents to discuss the family pairing features with their children and explain why they're turned on as well. So some more advice can be found on the NSPCC web pages. And also on the right hand side there, the orange bit, you can see that's taken from the Childline one. They've got lots of like articles there, like for example, if you want to start talking to your children about perhaps sexting and sending nudes, that might be an article for you to kind of read together and then start talking about it. Also, don't forget the NSPCC helpline is not just a helpline that you can use to share any concerns about the welfare of a child. If you want to get some advice and support yourself as adults, you can give them a ring on 0808 800 5000, or if you don't want to email, you can just email them at help@nspcc.org.uk. Childline obviously is there, the number 0800 1111, but as I talked about earlier, the website is such a great resource. You could perhaps look at the moderated message boards as well. But it's also about speaking to other parents. Share your knowledge, share your tips, share supervision like we talked about earlier on. And we have a free monthly online safety newsletter you might like to sign up to. Now's a chance to kind of try and get hold of that DR code, but you can find the link as well on our online safety pages on the NSPCC. If you type in NSPCC online safety, should take you through to those pages, and you'll be able to see the free sign up for the monthly online safety newsletter too. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and hopefully that was of some use to everybody.